What's going on? So, this week in class, I learned about grades, quieting kids, and feeling like a failure. All right, let's talk about it. Yeah, so let's talk about what I learned this week. So one thing that's interesting is I have a parking spot, right? Now, not like it's my parking spot. Anybody else can park there, but because of when I get there, there's always the same people at work when I get there, So because it's Florida, So if you park closer to the building, you don't have shade, right? So when you get in your car in the afternoon, it's really hot. So I park underneath the tree. So then when I go to get in my car, it's borderline cool. So I love it. Not exciting for you. Very exciting for me. My kids are like, why do you park here all the time? Because when I go to work, I take my kids with me and I'm like, cuz it's not hot when we get back in the car. Right. So, teacher work day. So remember last time I told you about what I thought was a teacher work day, and it was actually a professional development day, and things went differently than I expected. So this was an actual teacher work day. Only thing is grades were due, and I didn't know enough to start before then. So I spent a lot of my day doing grades and some other administrative things, but I was able to stay in my room and do the work that I needed to do. So that was cool. I have two office supply things. I give you one now. I give you another one later. So I actually use the laminator. Now I have a laminator. I was doing a project a couple of years ago, so I bought a small one, right? Something that you would use to definitely use it for ID cards, and you could feed like one sheet of paper through at a time, right? Well, this laminator is huge. You can put 3 sheets of paper right next to each other, and it just rolls. What it is it's 2 huge sheet like rolls of plastic on a roll, and it laminates you rolling between it, and then you pull it out the back and then you cut it out. So my room, the motif is Avengers, so I wanted to put up letters and numbers that were Avengers. So I printed them and then I laminated them and got them up. So I did that today. So that was pretty cool. So I mean, of course, laminate is great, right? Because it's going to keep paper from getting all messed up. So nice little toy. Grades. So at this grade level, right? Second grade, grades aren't quite like when you think of it, for middle and high school. Like, oh, your academic career. It's not quite that. It's more of, are they meeting grade level standards? Do they need additional help? Types of things. So it leans heavily on, are they addressing the standards that need to be done? And a lot of that is figured out through testing. There's some subjectivity, when you're like, well, let me look at the test, but how does this kid do in class, right? What do they understand? What do they know? So it's a little bit of subjectivity, but it's mostly based on the data you get from testing and then just the work you do with the kids, So, and then of course, you add your little comments. It was just interesting being on the other side of this because I'm a parent, right? So report cards always come home to me. It was something to do it and say, this is what that process looks like and feels like on the other side of it. So that was just interesting for me. Looking forward to my students improving. I don't want to put that all on me, but I want to do my part to make that happen. This is just a question I had, right? So if you're a teacher, right, or if you're an introvert and you've ever been interested in being a teacher, how do introverts like function in a classroom? Not function, you know what I mean? Not like that. Manage or deal with being in a classroom. And maybe it depends on the grade level, right? Needy people are needy people, but it's different once you move up some. In elementary school, and especially the lower grades, they call your name all day. They really need you for a lot. So if you're an introvert, how do you deal with that? Comment, leave a comment. And then if you've experienced like an introvert who may have been in the classroom, like your child's teacher or something like that, what did you notice about that? I'm just curious, right? I actually have a friend that I can ask, but that popped into my head and I was just thinking about that. What else? No, we're not going to do that yet. I learned a few different ways to quiet kids. So one, and listen, it's just the truth. Candy quiets kids, right? If you use candy as a reward, not all day, not all the time, it works really well. The other thing that I learned, so my school has an attention signal, but sometimes if the kids are just accustomed to talking, you end up having to talk over the kids to give them the attention signal. One thing, and it's still valid, it has its place, but the kids know it because they've been in school. So if you say waterfall, what they know is what you're asking them is, what does a waterfall sound like? And they all say, shh, and they quiet themselves. And even the sound itself is calming. So I think it's cool. It makes sense. And then the other thing that I learned people do is you maybe talk at like a medium to a medium low voice. And you say, if you can hear me, touch your nose. If you can hear me, put your hand on your head. And you keep doing those things and they stop. They stop talking and playing and they're listening because they're basically playing a really low level game of Simon Says. And it's a good way to kind of get everybody's attention and then move forward. Now, depending on the rowdiness of your class, you may have to do that a few times, more than you want to maybe. But the great thing is they respond to it because they're like, oh, yeah, they're trained. They've been doing these types of things since kindergarten, first grade. So now in second grade, when they hear it, they know what to do. So one thing I would say about being a new teacher is just support is just so important, because regardless of what you think you know about the job, there's just so much that you don't, and not just in the classroom, but out of the classroom and dealing with parents and all of that. And it can be difficult if you don't have just really, really close and tight hands-on support. You can't have support that's kind of like, hey, if you need anything from me, let me know. I can't do that because I need everything. I don't know anything. So there is no one specific thing that I'm going to ask you for. Now, granted, it's great to, if you're learning, pick one subject area or one area of focus and really drill down into that and lock that in and move on to the next thing. But to ask me what I need help with or what do I need to learn more about, the answer is going to be everything, So it works really well when you have people who are looking at you and anticipating what you need and understanding what you need and pointing you in direction of resources or, kind of taking some things off of your plate so that you can kind of manage this Sisyphean task, So I mentioned that I may have been losing a student, right? And I mentioned it to another teacher and they're like, if a parent doesn't tell you, you don't know. And that's just the bottom line. You don't, because they're second graders, and they say things. Ain't nothing you can do about that. You know what I mean? Yo, Marty Mar, what's up? Hey, listen. Um, a lot of kids says like for you to give them responsibility, which can be in the simplest form, such as helping. I agree with that. 100%, Martin. Giving responsibility to kids. Like one thing I need to do, which I haven't implemented yet, and it's on my list, is to create classroom jobs. One thing I definitely do is, I stopped answering the door. So when I send kids to the bathroom, other kids answer the door. I tell them if an adult is at the door, get my attention before you answer it. But because at one point I'm trying to teach and I sent kids to the bathroom and they're on a rotation. I got to keep stopping. So I took that off my plate. And then now if I have papers that need to be passed out, they do that. I even had in the first trimester, I had safety patrols in my room. So in the morning, they would take all the chairs because we stacked the chairs at the end of the day. They would take the chairs, put them back at the kids' desks, and just kind of whatever I needed in the morning. So I do see a benefit to giving the kids responsibilities. And I think part of it is me making sure I'm understanding what I'm doing before I can, give things over. So I got to work on that. But I agree. Definitely. Martin, good to see you, bro. We should talk. It's been forever. But yes, like I said, you don't know what's going to go on with kids unless you actually hear it from an adult. So I reached out to parent, all the numbers I had. I never really got a response, and, the child, she is so dramatic, right? And I'm like, I think it was Friday. No, it was Monday. It was Monday. She was like, so wait, what is today? Today is Tuesday. And I actually wasn't at work on Friday. So I was there on Thursday. So I think she knew she was going to be going. And she was like, so this is the last hug you're ever going to get from me. And that is so sad. I was like, okay, all right. I mean, I definitely gave her a hug because she always asked for one, and then boom, gone, So once that was clear, I talked with the students this morning just to let them know. People go, people leave, they might be sad. I asked who knew, right? Because some of them said, yeah, she did say it. I don't know. I'm wondering if in the future I should do something, but I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do a big goodbye thing and the kid doesn't go anywhere, right? What things have you done as a teacher when you knew a student was leaving? Just curious to know. So what things have you done, and then how did you manage it if you knew the student was leaving? And then how did you manage it if a student left and you didn't know about it, right? I'm just curious. You can leave that in the comments. Last but not least. One more tech thing. Printer. Huge printer, looks like a really big complicated thing. Changing the toner is very easy. Literally pull the panel off, pull out the old one, slide the new one facing the right way. I was like, oh, that's great. You know what I mean? I wish they would just leave them there for us to do it, but they're probably scared because it's a big, expensive piece of machinery that somebody will mess it up. But really easy to fix and take care of ourselves because everybody prints so much that we end up running out of toner regularly. And if people don't get around to make sure it's done, then we got a printer or two down, and then what will happen is like there's some lounges that have more than one printer and one printer will go down. So now everybody's using the other one and then that depletes that even faster. So then you end up in a situation where two printers are down in a particular building and then people are going over to another building. Yeah. Okay. Last but not least, I was talking to a co-worker and just telling her that I felt like a failure as a teacher. And she's just so wise, and I just respect her so much. And she was like, and you will, right? That's just part of the job until you do it more, until you get some knocks and some bruises, you will feel like a failure. But you just keep at it. You keep working, you keep learning, you keep trying, you keep pushing, you know what I mean? And at some point you will realize that I know how to do these things. These are some things that I struggle with, but this I'm great with. And I keep hearing that the first year is just the year that you have to get through. And there's no other way around it. What's funny, and I think I've said this before, is I've always used the teacher journey as an abstraction, right? I would explain to people and use the teacher journey as as an analogy in terms of reaching greatness or reaching expertise, right? Oh, the first year, you don't know what you're doing. It's horrible. The second year, you don't know what you're doing, but you know what it is you don't know, right? So you can start working on it. The third year, you kind of got a handle on things. You're not an expert, but you got a good idea of what to happen. And somewhere between the fourth and the fifth year, you got it. You know what's going on. And it's just lather, rinse, and repeat. I've said that for years, right? But it's almost annoying to be a teacher now and be like, that's not just something cute to say. That's real. And I'm in that painful situation of just kind of, in the middle of the ocean, treading water with no land in sight, no idea of when anyone's going to show up. You know what I mean? And it is extremely difficult. And because I love those very few moments when I actually get to teach, or when you see the light bulb come on, or when you ask a student to show you something that you've shown them and they give it back to you, or they do it in their own words, like nothing like it, right? So that makes it worthwhile, but just the journey is quite difficult, so I wouldn't recommend teaching for someone who is just looking for a job. I remember there was a point when there was a discussion about, we should recruit, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think they wanted to recruit veterans for security, but I've seen, because of the fact that there's a teacher shortage, I've seen situations where teachers were recruited. Like, well, if you have a degree, here's a quick path into education. And I would not recommend it if you don't love teaching, if you don't love children. At least one of those, it's going to be very difficult, and you may not be able to stick, because if the support is not there for you and you don't know how to go get it yourself, it's just hard, and it's going to feel like it's hard for no reason. And if you don't love probably the most important parts of the job, right? If you don't love the children, and if you don't love educating, it may not be worth it for you. Now, I don't know. You might push past it. You may develop that love, right? But and it's funny. A lot of my friends know that about themselves. They look at education and like, nope, can't do it. And it's not just the money or the lack thereof. It's people know their tolerance and their patience level of patience, So I'm glad that this is where my heart is, because that makes difficult days, I can get through them, So that is what I learned in class this week. So I'll be back to let you know what I learned in class next week. All right, y'all. Take care.